In the waning light of a bruised sunset, the dense, mysterious forest of Barakund lay stretched across the rugged mountains like a silent sentinel guarding ancient secrets. The wind whispered through the towering pines and firs, carrying tales of old, tales of wanderers and hidden truths. It was on one such evening that Arsam Idris, a lone hiker whose heart beat in rhythm with nature's call, set foot on the secluded trail of the forgotten woods. Arsam, a man of quiet determination and an unyielding curiosity, had long sought solace from the cacophony of modern life. His journey was more than mere exploration. It was an inward pilgrimage, a quest for understanding the silent language of the wild. Unbeknownst to him, the forest had been preparing for his arrival for eons, its creatures and elements aligned to unveil a story that transcended the ordinary. The path was narrow and winding, bordered by ancient trees whose roots snaked over crumbling stone relics. Each step Arsam took resonated with the crunch of fallen needles and brittle twigs. The air was cool and carried a musky aroma, a blend of damp earth, resin, and the faint, elusive hint of something long forgotten. As dusk descended, the forest transformed. Shadows elongated and merged, concealing hints of movement in their depths. The serenity was punctuated by distant calls, perhaps the cry of an owl or the rustle of a small creature in the underbrush. It was then that Arsam's senses, honed by years of solitude, detected a change. A subtle shift in the rhythm of nature, a pause in the familiar symphony of nocturnal sounds. Uncertainty grew as Arsam advanced deeper into the forest. The once comforting murmur of nature now bore an undercurrent of tension. His eyes, adjusting to the dimming light, began to pick out faint silhouettes among the trees. At first, he dismissed them as tricks of the fading light, a dance of shadows on the forest floor. But soon, a disquieting realization crept in. He was not alone. The sound of low, measured footsteps echoed softly behind him, a rhythm that matched his own heartbeat. Arsam's pulse quickened, and a bead of sweat traced down his temple. He halted and turned slowly, his eyes scanning the tree line. There, emerging from the twilight, was a pack of wolves. Their eyes, like molten amber, glimmered with an uncanny intelligence. They moved with deliberate grace, circling him as if orchestrating a silent interrogation. These were no ordinary wolves. Their presence was laden with a mystique that spoke of ancient lore and wild magic. The Alpha, a majestic creature with a coat as dark as the starless sky and a scar etched along its muzzle, stepped forward, his gaze locked onto Arsam. There was no malice in those eyes, only a profound, inscrutable warning. In that charged moment, Arsam felt the weight of centuries upon his shoulders. The wolves did not immediately attack, nor did they retreat. Instead, they fixed their attention on a sound that emanated from the deepest recesses of the forest. A low, guttural murmur that was both familiar and alien, reverberating through the undergrowth like the beating of a colossal heart. The forest, it seemed, was not solely a realm of trees and animals. It was a canvas painted with memories and mysteries, where every rustle and whisper held a significance beyond mortal comprehension. As the wind picked up, carrying with it the scent of pine and impending rain, the atmosphere thickened with foreboding. Arsam's mind raced, cataloging every myth and legend he had ever heard of the ancient woods. Stories told of spirits that guarded the forest, of creatures that straddled the line between life and myth. But nothing had prepared him for this encounter, a silent communion with nature's wild guardians. The pack, in unison, began to shift their formation. Their eyes darted in the direction of a dense copse of trees at the forest's heart, where the shadows seemed to coalesce into a singular pulsating entity. The Alpha's growl deepened, resonating with a tone that seemed to echo through time. Every hair on Arsam's body stood on end. He could not fathom what force had drawn these magnificent beasts into a unified stance. It was then that an ethereal sound broke the tense silence, a melody, haunting yet mesmerizing, emanating from the unseen depths of the forest. The wolves turned their heads, their expressions a mix of reverence and urgency. The melody, like a siren's call, seemed to weave through the branches and leaves, beckoning all who could hear it into its enigmatic embrace. Arsam, though gripped by fear, found himself strangely compelled by the sound. His logical mind rebelled against the irrational allure, yet his heart, ever the seeker, leaned into the mystery. The narrator observes that in that moment, the boundaries between reason and instinct blurred, and Arsam was transported into a realm where the past and present converged in an endless twilight. The hiker's journey took on a surreal quality as he stepped away from the beaten path, following the haunting melody. The forest seemed to guide him, the undergrowth parting, as if aware of his destiny. With each step, the melody grew clearer, its notes resonating with the deepest parts of his soul. The wolves, now his silent escorts, maintained their vigilant perimeter at a respectful distance. Arsam's thoughts wandered to the legends of his childhood, a time when his grandmother would recount tales of a guardian spirit of the wild, a protector who appeared in times of dire need. He recalled the shimmering figure of Aftab, the luminous wanderer who was said to bring guidance to lost souls. Could it be that the forest had summoned him to bear witness to an event beyond human? Every rustle, every whisper of the wind carried a memory, a story of love, loss, and the eternal dance between man and nature. As Arsam advanced further, the landscape itself transformed. The gnarled trees gave way to a clearing bathed in the spectral glow of bioluminescent flora. The ground was carpeted with moss that pulsed gently, as if breathing in sync with the earth. In the center of the clearing stood an ancient stone altar, worn smooth by the passage of countless seasons, its surface etched with symbols whose meanings were lost to time. The wolves circled the clearing with a reverence that belied their wild nature. The alpha positioned himself in front of the altar, his eyes reflecting a wisdom that transcended his animal form. In a voice that seemed to emanate from the very soul of the forest, the narrator reveals that the altar was a relic, a remnant of a bygone era when humans and nature shared a sacred covenant. Its presence was a silent reminder that some truths were too profound for words. Na and Arsam, standing at the edge of the clearing, felt a tumult of emotions. The fear that had gripped him earlier now mingled with a sense of awe and anticipation. The melody swelled and the air shimmered with the promise of revelations. He was on the precipice of discovering a secret that had been guarded for centuries, a truth that would challenge everything he believed about the natural world and his place within it. As the twilight deepened, a palpable energy filled the clearing. The bioluminescent glow of the flora cast surreal dancing patterns upon the ancient stone, and the air was thick with the scent of jasmine and wet earth. Arsam's eyes, wide with wonder, traced the intricate carvings on the altar. Each symbol, each mark, told a story of an ancient covenant between the earth and those who dwelled upon it. The wolves, as if in a silent accord, began to emit soft rhythmic sounds, a chorus of murmurs that harmonized with the haunting melody. The alpha stepped closer to the altar, and in that silent communion, the forest itself seemed to hold its breath. A sudden gust of wind swept through the clearing, stirring the carvings as if awakening them from a long slumber. The symbols glowed, faintly, their light pulsating in time with the heartbeat of the forest. In that transcendent moment, Arsam's mind was flooded with visions. He saw images of ancient tribes gathering beneath starlit skies, their voices raised in reverence as they invoked the spirits of the wild. He witnessed rituals performed at the altar, ceremonies of renewal and sacrifice, of harmony and discord. The line between the past and present blurred, and for an ephemeral moment, Arsam was not merely a hiker, but a participant in the eternal dialogue between man and nature. The narrator now explains that what Arsam experienced was not merely a trick of the mind, but a profound connection to the energy that bound all living things. The forest was alive with memory and magic, its secrets woven into the very fabric of existence. The wolves, guardians of this ancient wisdom, had brought him here not by chance, but by destiny. Yet, as the vision subsided, a lingering uncertainty took hold. The altar, though a symbol of unity and ancient promise, also whispered of a hidden peril, a darkness that lurked beyond the veil of light, waiting for a moment of vulnerability. The air grew cooler, and the gentle hum of life gave way to a foreboding silence. Arsam could feel the presence of something unseen, an enigmatic force that defied explanation. With his heart pounding in his chest, Arsam stepped forward. Every instinct urged him to retreat, yet an irresistible pull drove him closer to the altar. The wolves maintained their solemn vigil around him, their eyes reflecting both caution and an unspoken trust. The ancient stone, still aglow with the remnants of sacred fire, seemed to murmur secrets that only the brave could comprehend. As he reached out a trembling hand to touch the cool, weathered surface of the altar, the forest seemed to exhale a collective sigh. In that moment, time itself appeared to slow. The wolf alpha's gaze locked with Arsam's, and in those amber depths, he saw a reflection of his own soul, torn between fear and the yearning for truth. A sudden resonant thud echoed through the clearing, a sound akin to the distant beat of a colossal drum. The ground beneath Arsam's feet trembled lightly, and the bioluminescent moss flickered as if disturbed by an unseen force. The narrator clarifies that this was no ordinary tremor, but rather the prelude to an event that would unravel the very fabric of reality in this ancient wood. Without warning, a spectral figure emerged from behind the altar. Draped in tattered robes that shimmered with an ethereal luminescence, the figure moved with a grace that belied the burden of time. Its face was obscured by a hood, yet even in shadow the eyes burned with an inner light, a beacon of both warning and hope. This enigmatic presence did not speak, yet its silent gaze conveyed a message of profound significance. Arsam's mind raced as he sought to understand the implications of this apparition. The wolves, too, seemed to recognize the figure's import, their postures shifting in deference. The figure extended a long, bony hand toward the altar, and in response, the carvings flared brighter, as if ignited by the touch of destiny. The spectral visitor's presence hinted at secrets buried deep within the history of Barakund, a history that intertwined the fates of the forest, its creatures, and the forgotten tribes that once called it home. A charged silence enveloped the clearing as the spectral figure continued its silent communion with the ancient stone. The melodic hum of the forest, once soothing, now carried a somber cadence. Arsam, though gripped by trepidation, felt an inexplicable surge of courage. It was as if the spirit of the woods had chosen him as its emissary, a reluctant guardian of truths, long hidden beneath layers of time and myth. In the interplay of shadow and light, the figure's form seemed to ripple, its features shifting, like the reflection in disturbed water. Every detail of its visage, every subtle motion, told a story of sacrifice and redemption. The narrator reveals that the spirit was known in ancient lore as Nirwan, a custodian of the wild who had long since transcended mortal confines, entrusted with maintaining the balance between creation and destruction. Nirwan's eyes, piercing and sorrowful, met Arsam's gaze with an intensity that defied mortal understanding. The spectral guardian did not utter a word, yet in that prolonged stare, Arsam perceived a silent plea, a call to remember, to honor the covenant of old. The forest around them seemed to pulse with a heartbeat all its own, the bioluminescent flora and the steady rhythm of nature converging in a symphony of eternal life. As the moment stretched into an eternity, the wolves began to murmur in low, resonant tones. The alpha's deep growl merged with the soft cadence of the wind, crafting an auditory tapestry that spoke of both sorrow and hope. It was as if the forest itself had become a living, breathing entity, each rustle of leaves and every distant call echoing the timeless narrative of survival and kinship. Arsam's senses were overwhelmed by the magnitude of the revelation. He could feel the weight of ancient oaths pressing upon his shoulders, the silent expectations of generations past. In the dim glow of the clearing, every detail, the texture of the stone, the shimmer of the spectral robes, the measured gaze of the wolves, told him that he was at the crossroads of destiny. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, yet it was illuminated by the promise of profound understanding. In that fragile moment of clarity, the forest seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, as if relieved to have finally shared one of its long-held secrets. But beneath the surface of calm, the dark currents of fate swirled ominously. Arsam, now more than ever, understood that the mysteries of Barakund were not easily unraveled. Every revelation came with a price, every answer with its own set of riddles. As the spectral figure receded into the shadows, leaving behind an aura of melancholy and mystery, the wolves slowly dispersed, their silent departure a reminder that nature's balance had been momentarily restored. Yet the energy of the clearing remained charged, every stone and leaf resonating with the echoes of a past that was not yet ready to fade into oblivion. In the depths of his soul, Arsam knew that his journey was far from over. The forest, with all its enigmatic wonders and concealed perils, had spoken to him in a language that transcended words. Each heartbeat echoed the silent promise of transformation, and every shadow held the potential for rebirth. Yet the path forward was shrouded in uncertainty, a tapestry woven from threads of destiny, memory, and the inexorable march of time. As the night deepened and the silver light of the moon caressed the ancient pines, Arsam's thoughts turned inward. The events of the evening had shattered the confines of his ordinary existence, thrusting him into a realm where myth and reality danced in a delicate, perpetual waltz. The forest of Barakund was no longer merely a backdrop to his journey. It had become a living entity, a silent partner in his quest for truth. Every sound, every flicker of light, seemed imbued with purpose. The gentle rustle of leaves whispered of a time when man and nature existed in harmonious balance, a time when the covenant between them was honored and revered. Yet, as Arsam pondered these ancient memories, a subtle tremor in the earth beneath his feet reminded him that the equilibrium was fragile. The forces that had shaped the forest for millennia were stirring, and the calm was merely a prelude to an approaching storm. In the stillness of that moonlit night, Arsam's eyes met the star-studded sky. The constellations, age-old witnesses to the secrets of the universe, seemed to offer silent counsel. He could almost hear their distant voices, a cosmic murmur that spoke of destiny, of a life intertwined with the wild, and of choices that would echo through eternity. The wolves' presence, now a memory etched into the very fabric of the night, served as a poignant reminder of nature's unyielding power. They had come not as harbingers of doom, but as protectors of a covenant that transcended mortal understanding. Their eyes had conveyed messages too profound for words, their silent vigil a testament to the enduring bond between the wild and those who dared to seek its mysteries. And so, standing at the threshold of an uncertain destiny, Arsam felt both the weight of ancient responsibilities and the exhilarating promise of what lay ahead. The journey that had begun as a solitary hike had evolved into a pilgrimage, a quest to unearth the lost lore of Barakund and to restore a balance long disrupted. As he prepared to leave the clearing, his heart a tumult of hope and trepidation, the soft murmur of the forest reassured him that every ending was but a prelude to a new beginning. The spectral figure, Nirwan, had vanished into the inky blackness, leaving behind only the lingering glow of ancient magic and the unspoken vow of protection. With measured steps, Arsam retraced his path from the clearing, each footfall a reluctant farewell to the sacred space that had revealed so much yet left him with even greater questions. The night was alive with subtle energies, and the path ahead twisted and turned like the threads of fate. As he moved deeper into the forest, the echoes of the earlier encounter continued to resonate, a reminder of the covenant, the wolves, and the luminous promise of a hidden truth. The trail wound through a labyrinth of ancient oaks and whispering ferns. Every rustle of the underbrush and every distant hoot of an unseen creature served as a metronome to the rhythm of destiny. Arsam's mind remained fixated on the mysteries he had witnessed. What force had drawn the wolves to this enchanted clearing? Why had Nirwan appeared at that critical moment? And what role was destined for him in the unfolding saga of Barakund? In the distance, the murmur of a hidden stream provided a gentle counterpoint to the nocturnal symphony of the forest. The water, glimmering under the moon's watchful eye, meandered through the terrain like a silver serpent, a silent witness to the eternal dance of life and time. As Arsam approached, he paused to listen. The soft gurgle of the stream harmonized with the whisper of the wind, crafting a lullaby that both soothed and unsettled him. It was at this juncture that the narrator notes an eerie anomaly. A series of footprints, large and deliberate, marked the muddy bank of the stream. These were not the prints of any creature Arsam had known in the wild. They bore the unmistakable pattern of a being both formidable and enigmatic, a presence that defied classification. The footprints, etched into the soft earth, led away from the stream and deeper into the forest's enigmatic heart. Arsam knelt by the bank, his eyes tracing the path of the prints with a mix of fascination and apprehension. The markings were deliberate, as though left behind by a guardian or a wanderer from a realm beyond. In that silent moment, he felt the stirring of something ancient, a force that whispered of legends and the eternal struggle between light and darkness. The forest, with its infinite layers of mystery, seemed to beckon him onward. Each step carried him further into an odyssey where the boundaries of time and reality blurred. The spectral glow of distant fireflies and the soft, rhythmic pulse of the earth became his only companions on this solitary journey. Yet, even as the night deepened, Arsam's resolve grew stronger. The encounter with the wolves, the spectral presence of Nirwan, and the cryptic footprints had converged into a singular purpose, a quest to decipher the enigma of Barakund and restore the sacred covenant that once united all living beings in harmonious accord. As the wind began to rise once more, stirring the leaves in a frenzied dance, Arsam stepped forward with a determined heart. The murmur of the forest and the distant call of the unseen guardian spurred him on, each step echoing the silent promise of revelation. The journey was only beginning, and the night was still young, holding secrets that would test the very limits of his courage and faith. As the silvery glow of the moon melted into the horizon and the stars began their silent vigil overhead, Arsam Idris found himself stepping into a realm where reality and myth intertwined. The dense forest of Barakund, once a silent expanse of ancient trees and whispered legends, had transformed before his eyes into a living tapestry of forgotten dreams and luminous secrets. He now stood at the edge of a small, enchanted valley, where a crystalline lake lay shimmering under the celestial light. Its surface was smooth like glass, reflecting not only the cosmos above but also the layers of memory embedded in the soil below. Each ripple in the water carried echoes of ages past, a silent hymn that spoke of civilizations long buried and pacts made between man and nature. In that moment, the lake was more than a body of water. It was an oracle, a mirror that revealed both the beauty and the sorrow of bygone eras. Arsam's footsteps were soft on the forest floor, which was carpeted in moss that seemed to pulse with a gentle rhythmic beat. The sound was almost like a heartbeat, the pulse of the ancient earth itself. Every step he took was both a journey forward and a descent into the depths of a mystery that had been awaiting him for centuries. The cool night air was thick with the fragrance of pine, damp earth, and a subtle sweetness that hinted at blooming nocturnal flowers. The environment was charged with an otherworldly energy, as if every leaf and stone had a story to tell. The wolves that had earlier circled him now receded into the shadows, their luminous eyes reflecting both caution and an unspoken promise. Their silent departure was not one of abandonment but of respect. They had fulfilled their role as guardians of the covenant between nature and the lost lore of Barakund. And now, as Arsam approached the lake, he sensed that his presence here was not accidental, but rather an inevitable convergence of fate and ancient design. Seated at the water's edge, he allowed his mind to wander, drawn into the mesmerizing dance of reflections. He recalled the stories of old his grandmother used to tell him, tales of Afros, the radiant spirit of the forest, who was believed to guide lost souls to the heart of nature's truth. In the soft luminescence of the lake, Arsam could almost see a spectral outline, as if Afros's essence lingered in the air. The thought stirred within him a deep reverence and a touch of trepidation, for every ancient legend carried both wisdom and a warning. A gentle rustling of leaves broke the silence, and the wind began to carry with it a low, haunting melody. The sound was not produced by any conventional instrument, but by the very soul of the forest. It resonated through the valley in a series of soft, undulating notes, a lullaby sung by the earth itself. Arsam listened intently, his heart swelling, with the realization that this melody was not merely sound, but a message, a secret code transmitted across time. As he absorbed the music, the surface of the lake began to shimmer more intensely. Swirls of light and color danced upon the water like ethereal brushstrokes on a canvas. In these luminous patterns, visions of forgotten eras materialized before his eyes. He saw figures in ancient garb performing ritual dances beneath blazing bonfires, their voices raised in an incantation that spoke of unity, sacrifice, and rebirth. The imagery was both beautiful and surreal, an exquisite tapestry of humanity's deep connection to the natural world, interwoven with threads of mystery and magic. At that moment, the water rippled, and from its depths emerged a delicate, translucent figure. It was as if the lake had given birth to a being of pure light, a spectral manifestation that radiated a serene, almost celestial aura. The figure moved with grace, drifting towards Arsam as if drawn by an invisible current. Though its features were indistinct, the essence of compassion and wisdom shone through its shimmering form. For a brief moment, time seemed to pause as the apparition came to rest before him, its presence both comforting and unsettling. The figure, which Arsam could only interpret as a messenger of the ancient covenant, extended a hand that beckoned him closer. Though no words were exchanged, the silent communication was profound, an invitation to step beyond the veil of ordinary existence and embrace the deeper, timeless truths that lay hidden within the forest's heart. It was an invitation to trust in the guidance of the unseen and to accept that some mysteries were meant to be experienced rather than explained. Arsam's heart pounded with a mix of excitement and dread. The spectral visitor, with its otherworldly calm, instilled in him the courage to venture further into the unknown. With every fiber of his being, he understood that this was a turning point, a threshold where the boundaries of the physical and the metaphysical blurred into insignificance. He reached out slowly, his hand trembling as it neared the figure. The moment his skin brushed against the ethereal glow, a cascade of images flooded his consciousness. He saw the ancient forest in its primeval glory, a time when the natural world was vibrant and unspoiled, and when man lived in harmony with the wild. Tribes gathered under starlit skies, their chants and rituals forming a bridge between the human spirit and the elemental forces of nature. In that timeless vision, the forest was a living entity, a being of immense wisdom that communicated its secrets through every rustle of leaves and every murmur of the wind. Yet amid the beauty, there was an undercurrent of sorrow. The vision revealed moments of discord, a time when the delicate balance between civilization and the untamed wilderness was disrupted by human greed and negligence. Arsam saw the consequences of broken covenants, barren lands, withered trees, and hearts hardened by the relentless pursuit of progress. The spectral encounter was a poignant reminder that every gift from nature came with a price, and that the ancient bond between man and earth was sacred, demanding both reverence and responsibility. As the vision subsided, the lake's surface gradually returned to its tranquil state, though the imprint of those revelations lingered in the cool night air. The spectral figure, now a fading wisp of light, slowly dissolved into the shimmering reflections. Yet its message remained etched in Arsam's soul, a call to honor the ancient covenant and to mend the fractured relationship between humanity and the natural world. Leaving the enchanted lake behind, Arsam continued his journey deeper into the labyrinthine heart of Barakund. The forest around him had transformed yet again, its ancient trees now towered like solemn sentinels, their trunks marked with intricate patterns of moss and lichen that hinted at untold histories. The night was alive with subtle sounds, the soft murmur of a distant brook, the occasional call of an unseen night creature, and above all, the persistent echo of the forest's heartbeat. Every step forward was accompanied by a profound awareness that he was treading on hallowed ground, a realm where nature guarded its secrets fiercely. The path ahead was lit by the pale glow of bioluminescent fungi that sprouted along the mossy floor. Their light was ethereal, casting otherworldly shadows that danced in sync with the gentle sway of the trees. It was as if the very ground beneath him was imbued with ancient energy, urging him to delve further into the mysteries that lay hidden in every nook and cranny. Arsam's thoughts turned to the wolves that had initially heralded his arrival in the forest. Their silent vigil, their deliberate circling, now seemed like a ritual, a symbolic reminder that his journey was not solely his own, but was part of a larger cosmic narrative. Each of their luminous eyes had witnessed fragments of this saga, and now their legacy continued in the very soil and air of Barakund. The path led him to a clearing that was encircled by towering oaks, their gnarled branches interwoven like the threads of fate. In the center of the clearing, a weathered stone pedestal stood, covered in ancient runes and symbols. This pedestal, Arsam sensed, was once an altar, a place where the old covenant had been reaffirmed by tribes long lost to time. The symbols etched into the stone pulsed faintly, as if infused with the residual energy of countless prayers and offerings. Approaching the altar, Arsam felt a magnetic pull. His fingers brushed against the cold stone, and as he did, a surge of warmth spread through his body. In that electrifying moment, memories of the past mingled with the present. He saw fleeting images of ritualistic dances, of ceremonial fires blazing under a full moon, and of voices raised in solemn invocations to nature's deities. The altar was a repository of collective memory, a silent witness to the eternal dialogue between man and the wild. Then, as if stirred by his touch, the runes on the stone began to glow with an inner light. A soft, rhythmic hum emanated from them, a cadence that resonated with the steady beat of his own heart. The glow intensified gradually, illuminating the clearing with a spectral radiance that rendered every detail in stark relief. Arsam could discern shapes and figures in the shifting patterns of light, as though the past was coming alive before him. In that charged atmosphere, the air grew thick with the weight of destiny. It was as if the altar was not only a monument to what had been, but also a beacon for what was yet to come. The spectral melody that had haunted him earlier returned, now interwoven with the ancient voices of those who had once worshipped here. The voices were neither male nor female. They were the collective whisper of a lost generation, speaking in unison to awaken a dormant promise. Arsam's inner resolve strengthened. He understood that this place was a gateway, a threshold between the tangible world and the realm of spiritual truth. His journey, which had begun as a solitary hike, had evolved into an odyssey of rediscovery and reconciliation. Every step had led him to this moment of convergence, where the ancient and modern worlds merged in a dazzling display of light and shadow. The clearing, now bathed in the gentle glow of the altar's runes, seemed to whisper secrets that transcended time itself. Arsam knelt before the stone, his eyes fixed on the flickering symbols as he listened to the murmur of voices from long ago. Each syllable carried the weight of ages, a tapestry of hope, despair, and the undying promise of renewal. He felt the presence of unseen witnesses all around him, the guardians of the forest, the spirits of the ancient tribes, and even the restless souls of those who had once strayed from the sacred path. They seemed to converge upon this clearing, their collective energy pulsating in the air like a heartbeat. In that moment, Arsam realized that his journey was part of an enduring cycle, a continuous dialogue between nature and mankind that spanned millennia. Rising slowly, he followed a narrow, winding trail that branched off from the clearing. The path was lined with stone markers, each inscribed with cryptic symbols that hinted at the lore of a forgotten era. As he walked, the forest around him transformed into a living gallery of memories. Every rock, every gnarled root, appeared to serve as a chapter in an epic saga written in the language of the earth. The deeper he ventured, the more the forest seemed to reveal its dual nature. There were pockets of serenity where the air was filled with the soft hum of life, punctuated by the distant laughter of a hidden brook. Yet, there were also areas shrouded in profound silence, a stillness that spoke of loss and the passage of time. The interplay of light and darkness was palpable, a constant reminder that every revelation carried its own shadow. At intervals along the path, Arsam encountered natural sculptures formed by centuries of weathering and growth. One such formation was a towering archway of intertwined branches, beneath which the forest floor was strewn with delicate wildflowers that glowed with an inner radiance. It was here that the echoes of the past became almost tangible, as if the very air was saturated with ancient memories waiting to be rediscovered. As he continued along the winding trail, a soft luminescence began to emanate from the undergrowth. It was as though the forest itself was shedding its old skin, revealing hidden layers of beauty and truth beneath. Bioluminescent fungi and luminous lichens created a celestial pathway, guiding him deeper into realms where the boundaries between dreams and reality blurred into insignificance. Every so often, Arsam paused to trace his fingers over the etched symbols on the stone markers. Each inscription was a riddle, a poetic cipher that spoke of cosmic cycles, of the eternal dance between creation and destruction, of the fragile covenant that bound the hearts of all living beings. Though he could not decipher every nuance, the overall message was clear. This journey was not merely one of physical exploration, but of spiritual awakening. He was being called to bear witness to the ancient truths that had once united humanity with nature, and to restore the balance that had been disrupted by the march of time. A sudden gentle breeze carried with it a distant murmur, a sound that resembled the soft weeping of the wind. It was as if the forest was lamenting a forgotten sorrow, urging him to remember the cost of neglect and the pain of severed ties. The emotion was palpable, stirring memories of ancient grief and lost harmony. Arsam's heart ached at the thought, yet it also filled him with a fierce determination. He knew that in order to heal the wounds of the past, one must first confront them head-on. Night deepened as Arsam's path led him into a part of the forest where the very air seemed to vibrate with unseen energy. In this mysterious domain, the trees were older, their massive trunks standing as silent sentinels to an era when magic was as natural as the rising sun. Their branches, twisted and gnarled, reached out like the fingers of ancient beings, as though trying to caress the memories of lost civilizations. Here, every sound was amplified, the rustle of leaves, the crunch of twigs underfoot, and even the quiet rhythmic pulsing of his own breath. The forest, it seemed, was alive with the voices of those who had come before. Ghostly murmurs floated on the wind, whispering secrets in a language older than time itself. The echoes were not chaotic. Rather, they formed a melodic cadence that guided him further along the path of destiny. Amid the spectral symphony, Arsam encountered a clearing unlike any other. At its center stood an enormous weathered tree, its trunk as wide as a cottage and its branches sprawling in all directions. The tree radiated an aura of profound wisdom and ancient sorrow. Its bark was etched with carvings that told tales of battles fought, loves lost, and pacts forged between man and the wild. It was here that the forgotten spirits of the forest gathered in silence, their presence as tangible as the cool night air. Arsam approached the colossal tree with reverence. As he rested his hand upon its rugged surface, a deep, resonant hum emanated from within the trunk. The sound was not heard by the ears alone, it was felt deep in the core of his being. In that moment, the tree seemed to communicate with him, a silent transmission of memories and emotions. He sensed that this ancient being was a keeper of the covenant, a repository of the collective wisdom and sorrow of countless generations. Beneath the tree's vast canopy, the ground was carpeted with a thick layer of soft green moss, interspersed with delicate wildflowers. Small luminescent insects flitted around like tiny stars come to life. The interplay of light and shadow created intricate patterns that danced upon the forest floor, evoking the delicate balance between hope and despair that had defined the ancient world. Arsam sank to his knees, overcome by the majesty of the moment. With his eyes closed, he allowed the tree's silent song to wash over him, each note a reminder of the fragile bond between all life. In that stillness, he felt the weight of forgotten promises and the yearning for reconciliation, a plea from the past for humanity to remember its sacred duty as a guardian of the natural world. The voices of the forgotten spirits grew clearer, intermingling with the soft murmur of the wind. They spoke of cycles and renewal, of darkness giving way to light and of decay birthing new life. Through the ethereal chorus, Arsam sensed that the tree was urging him to embrace his destiny, to become a bridge between the old ways and the new, to restore the broken covenant, and to awaken the dormant magic that still thrived in the hidden corners of Barakund. As the night wore on, the boundaries between the physical and the spiritual realms dissolved even further. Arsam experienced fleeting visions, whispers of a time when man and nature existed in perfect harmony. He saw vibrant ceremonies under vast starlit skies. He witnessed the unity of human hearts and the wild's raw power. And he felt the overwhelming presence of an ancient force that had long been suppressed by modern dissonance. Each vision, ephemeral and bittersweet, deepened his resolve and filled him with a quiet determination to heed the call of the forgotten spirits. Emboldened by the ethereal communion beneath the ancient tree, Arsam rose and resumed his journey, along a new path that wound deeper into the heart of the forest. The moon had now climbed higher in the sky, casting silver beams that guided his way through an ever-shifting landscape of shadow and light. Every step was laden with meaning. Every rustle of leaves a reminder of the eternal dance of creation and dissolution. The path led him to a narrow passage bordered by clusters of ferns and delicate, dew-covered flowers. Here, the forest seemed to hold its breath, as though the air itself were pregnant with anticipation. The landscape was punctuated by natural sculptures, a fallen log embraced by ivy, a cluster of stones arranged in a pattern that resembled an ancient sigil, and a quiet pool that mirrored the stars. It was as if the forest were orchestrating a silent symphony of symbols, each element a clue to the mysteries that lay ahead. Arsam's journey was now one of both discovery and introspection. He reflected on the solemn encounters that had marked his passage through Barakund, the silent vigil of the wolves, the luminous apparition at the enchanted lake, the glowing runes on the ancient altar, and the soulful communion beneath the ageless tree. Each moment had imprinted upon his spirit a piece of the grand, ineffable puzzle that was the covenant between humanity and nature. Though the path was fraught with enigmas and shadows, it also brimmed with the promise of renewal and a deeper understanding of the forces that bound all life. In the midst of the narrow passage, the ground trembled softly beneath his feet. At first it was but a faint vibration, easily mistaken for the rustle of the wind. However, as Arsam paused to listen, the tremors grew more pronounced, subtle, yet insistent, like the beating of a hidden drum. It was as if the earth itself was communicating a message, a call to awaken to the ancient rhythms that had been obscured by the passage of time. The sound reverberated through the ground and into his bones, compelling him to press onward, guided by the inexorable pull of destiny. With a renewed sense of purpose, Arsam followed the trembling path, each step drawing him deeper into a landscape where reality and myth coexisted in delicate equilibrium. The forest opened into a vast clearing dominated by a sky filled with countless stars. Here, the night was so profoundly still that it appeared as if time had momentarily halted. In this expansive silence, the celestial bodies overhead shone with an intensity that seemed almost personal, each star a beacon of hope and remembrance. The clearing, however, was not empty. Emerging from the shadows were figures cloaked in garments of deep midnight blue, their forms outlined by a faint shimmering light. They moved with a quiet grace, their steps measured and deliberate, as if following a ritual dance passed down through generations. Although their faces were obscured, their presence exuded an aura of timeless wisdom and compassionate authority. These were the custodians of the ancient covenant, the guardians of Barakund's sacred secrets. Arsam halted, his heart quickening as he beheld the gathering. There was no threat in their movement, only a solemn invitation. The figures moved in unison toward the center of the clearing, where a stone dais had been constructed long ago as a place of gathering and remembrance. As they arranged themselves around the dais, the air seemed to shimmer with an invisible energy, a palpable force that vibrated with the resonance of ancient voices and eternal promises. The leader of the custodians, a figure whose presence radiated quiet authority, stepped forward. Though silent, the gaze of this enigmatic guardian conveyed volumes, a silent narrative of sacrifice, stewardship, and the duty to protect the delicate balance of the natural world. As Arsam watched, his mind filled with questions. Who were these ancient custodians, and what role did they intend for him? What were the secrets locked within the stone dais, and how did they relate to the covenant he had begun to unravel? Before he could gather his thoughts, the guardian extended a hand toward the dais. In response, the stone beneath shimmered with an otherworldly glow. The glow spread like ripples across a pond, igniting intricate patterns upon the surface of the stone that told stories of creation, conflict, and eventual reconciliation. It was a visual symphony of symbolism, a testament to a bond that had weathered the storms of time and yet remained as fragile as the first dew of morning. In that mesmerizing moment, the clearing seemed to hold its breath. The custodian's silent vigil, the radiant patterns on the dais, and the infinite expanse of the starlit sky converged into a singular point of truth. Arsam felt an overwhelming surge of connection, a merging of his spirit with the timeless narrative of Barakund. It was as if every heartbeat, every breath he took was inextricably linked to the pulsating rhythm of the earth and the eternal cycle of life and renewal. With cautious resolve, Arsam stepped forward, his eyes never leaving the radiant patterns on the dais. The custodians parted silently, forming an ethereal corridor through which he was meant to pass. Each step forward was laden with reverence and trepidation, for he knew that the journey ahead would demand not only physical endurance, but a profound transformation of his inner self. The clearing, with its silent congregation of ancient souls, was not merely a waypoint. It was the crucible in which his destiny would be forged. As he crossed the threshold of the custodian's formation, the rhythmic beating of the earth grew louder. It resonated with a primal intensity, echoing the eternal pulse of life itself. In that symphony of sound and silence, Arsam felt the weight of the ancient covenant settle upon his shoulders, a responsibility to honor the sacred balance between man and nature, to heal the fractures of a long-forgotten bond, and to ignite a flame of renewal that would light the way for generations to come. In the depths of that starlit clearing, under the watchful gaze of the custodians and the cosmic expanse above, Arsam Idris took his first steps toward an uncertain future. His heart was filled with both hope and sorrow, determination and humility. The ancient voices whispered of trials yet to come, of sacrifices that would test the very limits of his spirit, and of revelations that would reshape the boundaries of reality. And yet, in that charged moment, he knew that he was exactly where he was meant to be, on the precipice of a transformation that would echo through eternity. In the wake of his communion with the custodians, Arsam Idris stepped away from the starlit clearing with a heart both heavy and hopeful. The luminous patterns on the ancient dais continued to dance in his mind, their silent song urging him onward. The forest, though it now seemed imbued with a subtle clarity, still held mysteries beneath every leaf and stone. It was as if Barakundi itself was alive with memories of a forgotten sanctuary, a hidden enclave where the old covenant was once revered with ritual and reverence. Arsam's path led him through a labyrinth of overgrown trails where the foliage thickened and the air turned cool with the damp breath of centuries. The journey was punctuated by fleeting encounters, a rustle in the underbrush that might have been the brush of a nocturnal creature, a glimmer of eyes reflecting the moon's glow from behind a gnarled trunk, and at times, an inexplicable feeling that he was being silently observed. Yet the forest was gentle, offering guidance through a natural progression of light and shadow, each step a whispered invitation to remember the sacred pact between man and nature. After what seemed like hours of traversing narrow, winding paths, Arsam reached a secluded glen where the remnants of an ancient structure lay half-hidden beneath tangled vines and moss. Crumbling stone arches, etched with archaic symbols and worn smooth by the passage of time, testified to a once sacred gathering place, a sanctuary now forsaken but not forgotten. The sanctuary's ruins resonated with the energy of old rituals and echoes of chants that once called upon the guardians of nature. Here, nature and history coalesced in an unspoken dialogue of reverence and renewal. As he moved closer, Arsam discovered remnants of offerings left behind, shards of pottery adorned with faded glyphs, remnants of incense burners whose charred remains still carried a faint aroma of myrrh and frankincense, and carefully arranged piles of smooth river stones that formed cryptic patterns on the weathered floor. Each artifact was a silent testament to the people who had once sought solace and communion with the forest spirit. It was as if this hidden sanctuary had been a wellspring of ancient knowledge, a place where the line between the mortal and the divine had grown remarkably thin. Seated upon a fallen slab of stone, Arsam allowed himself a moment of reflection. The quiet beauty of the sanctuary, though touched by decay, was imbued with a palpable sense of purpose. In the hushed silence, he could almost hear the distant echoes of ceremonial chants, the gentle murmur of voices long past, urging him to awaken a latent power within himself. He felt an inner stirring, a call to remember that the covenant was not merely a relic of bygone eras, but a living, breathing promise that demanded nurturing and protection. In that reflective silence, the rustling of leaves and the soft sigh of the wind merged into a singular, harmonious tone, a reminder that every element in the forest was interlinked in a grand, cosmic design. Arsam closed his eyes, feeling the weight of ancient responsibility settle upon him. He realized that the forgotten sanctuary was not simply an end in itself, but a beacon, illuminating the path forward toward the restoration of a sacred bond that had been fractured by time and neglect. With a renewed determination, he rose and began to trace the intricate patterns carved into the stone walls. Each symbol, though faded, vibrated with meaning, a language of nature that transcended the bounds of ordinary speech. The images told tales of sacrifice, of unity between the wild and the civilized, and of a promise that was to be upheld by those courageous enough to venture into the unknown. Arsam vowed silently to honor these vestiges of ancient wisdom, knowing that the sanctuary was a key that could unlock deeper mysteries hidden within the forest's heart. Leaving the sanctuary behind, Arsam's journey resumed with a sense of purpose that belied the daunting challenges ahead. As he retraced the narrow path leading deeper into Barakund, the atmosphere grew denser, both in the tangible mist that clung to the ground and in the intangible aura of magic that the forest exuded. It was here, in this realm of shifting shadows and luminous fragments, that the veil between the seen and unseen grew perilously thin. The moon, now high in the heavens, bathed the forest in an ethereal glow that transformed every leaf and stone into a shimmering silhouette. Yet, within this dreamlike luminosity lay an unsettling quality, an enigmatic duality where beauty and foreboding intermingled. It was as if the forest was offering Arsam a final glimpse into its hidden soul, inviting him to confront not only external mysteries, but also the uncharted recesses of his own inner being. A subtle chill crept through the air as Arsam reached a crossroads marked by a pair of ancient trees, their trunks entwined as if in a silent embrace. Between these venerable guardians lay a narrow passage, barely wide enough for a solitary traveler. The passage was framed by cascading curtains of hanging moss that swayed gently in the nocturnal breeze. This was the fabled Vale of Shadows, a liminal space where the past and the future converged, and where the soul was forced to confront its deepest fears and hidden desires. With hesitant resolve, Arsam stepped into the veil. Immediately, the ambient sounds shifted. The familiar rustle of leaves and distant calls of nocturnal creatures were replaced by a haunting silence, punctuated by the echo of his own footsteps. The passage was lined with spectral reflections, a mirage of memories and fleeting images that danced along the periphery of his vision. Faces, places, and long-forgotten moments flitted in and out of focus, urging him to pause and reflect upon the fragments of his own history. In that moment of introspection, Arsam encountered a vision of himself, a mirror image that seemed both familiar and alien. This spectral double, composed of shifting light and shadow, stared back at him with eyes that held an ancient wisdom. Without uttering a single word, the apparition communicated a profound message: that to progress further, one must confront the inner demons and unresolved regrets that had accumulated like the fallen leaves in the forest. It was a trial of reflection, a necessary confrontation with the self that would determine whether the covenant of the forest could be restored through purity of intent and clarity of spirit. The trial was not one of external combat, but of internal reconciliation. Arsam felt his heart swell with memories of past failures, lost opportunities, and the weight of unspoken sorrows. As the spectral double continued its silent vigil, a stream of introspective thoughts flowed through him, Mingling with the elemental energy of the veil, the reflection seemed to offer not condemnation, but an invitation, a call to embrace both the light and the darkness within, to accept that every scar was a testimony to survival, and that true strength emerged from the synthesis of joy and grief. Slowly, as if guided by an unseen force, Arsam allowed himself to confront these buried emotions. The internal struggle was tumultuous, a cascade of vivid recollections interspersed with moments of serene acceptance. The forest, with its ageless presence, provided solace in the form of a gentle luminescence that bathed him in warmth and clarity. In that transformative moment, the spectral double gradually merged with his own reflection, dissolving into a radiant glow that seemed to signal the dawn of self-acceptance. As the trial of reflection reached its zenith, the narrow passage began to widen, and the oppressive weight of the veil lifted. Arsam emerged into an open clearing that pulsed with a quiet, yet resolute energy, a testament to his newfound clarity and inner harmony. The veil of shadows had not only tested his resolve, but it also cleansed the remnants of doubt that lingered within him. In its wake, he felt an inner light, a beacon of hope and purpose that promised to guide him in the challenges that lay ahead. In the clearing beyond the veil, the forest revealed yet another chapter of its timeless narrative, a realm where the interplay of nature and emotion took center stage. Arsam found himself standing before a massive natural amphitheater formed by towering cliffs and lush vegetation, its contours shaped by the slow artistry of wind and water over countless millennia. Here, the elements conspired to create a sacred space where the echoes of the past resounded like an ancient, living symphony. At the heart of the amphitheater, a crystalline pool lay nestled among smooth stones, its surface mirroring the night sky with unerring clarity. The pool's water shimmered with a hypnotic cadence, as though it carried within it the dreams and memories of generations long past. As Arsam approached, the rhythmic lapping of the water against the stone borders seemed to call out to him, a serenade of ancient promises and untold secrets. Seated on the bank of the pool was a solitary figure, draped in garments that glowed softly with a pale, otherworldly light. The figure's face was obscured by a hood, yet a sense of benevolence radiated from its posture. It was clear that this mysterious entity was one of the forest's revered guardians, one whose existence transcended the ordinary, woven into the fabric of nature's eternal lore. In a voice that was both gentle and resolute, the guardian spoke, but not as a separate character. The narrative voice itself carried the weight of this encounter, recounting the solemn message meant for Arsam's heart. The guardian's words resonated like a chant, urging him to remember that the covenant between humanity and nature was built upon trust, sacrifice, and the willingness to embrace vulnerability. Every beat of the crystalline pool's water mirrored the pulse of life itself, a rhythmic reminder that healing and renewal were possible only when the heart was laid bare. Arsam sat beside the guardian in reflective silence. As minutes melted into what felt like an eternity, the pool's water began to stir and glow with an inner radiance. Delicate patterns formed on its surface, images of long-lost rituals, celebrations of the harvest, and ceremonies of reconciliation between man and the wild. In those luminous reflections, the ancient bonds of the forest were revealed in their full splendor. The guardian's silent presence reinforced the truth that the covenant was not simply a relic of the past, but an ever-evolving pact that required the renewal of faith with every passing generation. The guardian's eyes, when they finally lifted from the pool to meet Arsam's, shone with empathy and ancient understanding. In that silent exchange, the hiker realized that the trials he had endured were merely the beginning of a far greater journey, one that would challenge him to reclaim the broken bonds of a world increasingly estranged from nature's embrace. It was a call to action, to heal not only the scars of the past but also the wounds of the present, and to kindle a flame of reverence that would light the way for future generations. As the night deepened further, the amphitheater transformed into a sanctuary of shared emotion. The wind carried with it the soft murmur of forgotten prayers, while the pool's surface danced with visions of renewal. Every element in that sacred space spoke to the heart of the covenant, urging Arsam to commit himself wholly to the restoration of a balance that had been disrupted by time and neglect. His soul, now stirred by the trials of reflection and the awakening of ancient bonds, embraced this calling with a fervor that transcended fear. Armed with a renewed sense of purpose and fortified by the trials of the heart, Arsam embarked on a new leg of his journey, a quest to reclaim the fractured covenant between humanity and nature. The forest of Barakund, with its silent witnesses and timeless spirits, seemed to rally around him, as though acknowledging his role as the herald of renewal. The path ahead led him to a vast expanse of ancient woodland, where time itself appeared to slow, and the very fabric of reality was interwoven with nature's enduring wisdom. Towering trees stretched their limbs skyward in a majestic display, their canopies forming an intricate mosaic that filtered the moonlight into delicate patterns upon the forest floor. The air was heavy with the fragrance of earth and dew, a testament to the land's eternal cycles of decay and rebirth. In the heart of this primeval grove, Arsam encountered a clearing unlike any he had witnessed before, a sacred arena marked by an enormous time-worn stone circle. The stones, arranged in a precise yet mysterious configuration, were covered with ancient runes and symbols that pulsed with a faint inner glow. It was here that the long-forgotten ritual of the covenant was once performed, a ceremony designed to forge an unbreakable bond between humankind and the wild spirit of nature. As he stepped into the circle, the ground beneath him vibrated with the resonance of 1,000 whispered incantations. The stones themselves seemed to awaken from a long slumber, their surfaces alive with a dynamic interplay of light and shadow. In that charged atmosphere, Arsam sensed the presence of countless ancestral voices, spirits of those who had once safeguarded the covenant, now reaching out from beyond the veil of time to guide him. The narrator conveys that in this hallowed space, every element converged to create a potent ritual of reclamation. Arsam's task was clear: to invoke the ancient rites and rekindle the sacred bond that had been diminished by modern apathy. With deliberate care, he knelt in the center of the circle and closed his eyes. He allowed his mind to become attuned to the rhythm of the earth, to the silent hymn that emanated from every stone, leaf, and breath of wind. The energy of the clearing surged through him, as if the very spirit of the forest was speaking directly to his soul. In that moment, a spectral vision emerged. A luminous figure, radiant with an ethereal glow, appeared at the edge of the circle. This figure, embodying the essence of Afros, the guardian spirit revered by ancient tribes, extended a graceful hand as an offering of unity. The apparition's expression was one of serene determination, a silent benediction urging Arsam to embrace the mantle of stewardship and mend the broken ties that once bound humanity to the wild. Arsam, his heart steady and his resolve strengthened by the trials of his journey, reached out to the spectral guardian. As their hands neared, the circle of stones flared with a brilliance that illuminated every rune and etched symbol, as though the past was converging with the present in a moment of transcendent clarity. The luminous energy cascaded through him, infusing his spirit with a profound awareness of the covenant's significance. In that transcendent instant, the barriers between the mortal and the divine dissolved, and Arsam felt himself becoming an integral part of the timeless cycle of renewal. As the glow subsided, the spectral figure receded, leaving Arsam bathed in a radiant afterglow of ancient promise. He rose slowly, his eyes glistening with the resolve of one who had seen both the beauty and the sorrow of forgotten ages. The reclamation of the covenant was no longer a distant ideal. It was now an intrinsic part of his destiny. With every step he took beyond the stone circle, he vowed to honor the sacred balance between man and nature, to kindle the spark of renewal that would bridge the chasm of centuries, and to restore the ancient bond that had long sustained the forest of Barakund. The first light of dawn began to push back the darkness as Arsam emerged from the ancient grove. The forest, now suffused with the promise of a new beginning, stirred with a gentle yet undeniable energy. The shadows that had cloaked the land for so long were gradually giving way to the soft embrace of morning light. In this transition, every leaf, every stone, and every whisper of wind spoke of rebirth and the eternal cycle of nature. Arsam paused at the threshold of a vast meadow that stretched out before him, a living canvas painted with dewdrops and vibrant hues of green. The meadow was dotted with wildflowers in full bloom, their delicate petals unfolding as if in celebration of the renewed covenant. It was here that the forest's ancient song resonated most clearly, a harmonious blend of past memories and future promises that carried the hopes of all who had ever walked beneath its boughs. As he ventured into the meadow, Arsam sensed that he was not alone. The very air was alive with the presence of those who had once safeguarded the sacred bond, their spirits interwoven with the natural world. From the shadows emerged familiar figures, the quiet, watchful eyes of the wolves, the spectral forms of the custodians, and the lingering aura of Afras, whose presence seemed to guide the renewal of the land. They moved in silent accord, their unspoken unity a testament to the covenant's enduring power. In the heart of the meadow, a new gathering took shape, a conclave of ancient spirits and awakened souls united by a common purpose. Here, under the gentle caress of the early morning sun, the guardians of Barakund and the descendants of a forgotten lineage convened in a ritual of renewal. Their voices, though soft and measured, carried the weight of a timeless promise, a pledge to restore the harmony between human endeavor and the wild's intrinsic order. Arsam stood at the center of this assembly, feeling the full gravity of the legacy entrusted to him. The voices of the ancient guardians resonated within him like a choir of distant ancestors, each note a reminder of the sacrifices made and the hope that now burned bright for the future. The covenant, once a fragile thread stretched thin by neglect, was being rewoven with the strength of communal spirit and the timeless force of nature's will. In that transcendent moment, as the meadow awakened to the dawn of a new era, Arsam understood that his journey was not simply one of solitary discovery. It was a transformative odyssey, a calling to restore a sacred balance that had been lost in the relentless march of time. The forest of Barakund, with its myriad mysteries and ancient lore, had chosen him as its emissary, a guardian destined to bridge the divide between the old ways and the modern world. As the sun climbed higher, casting golden rays that danced upon the dew-laden grass, the conclave began a solemn ritual. Ancient chants filled the air, interlacing with the rustling of leaves and the gentle murmur of a nearby stream. The ceremony was both a farewell to the darkness of forgotten times and a welcome to the radiant promise of renewal. With each recited verse, the energy of the covenant surged forth, a pulsating force that seemed to ripple through every living being in the meadow. In the midst of the ritual, Arsam felt an overwhelming sense of unity, a merging of his own heartbeat with the timeless pulse of the forest. The ancient voices spoke of rebirth, of nature's resilience, and of a covenant that, though tested by the ravages of time, could be revived through faith, courage, and an unyielding love for the natural world. It was a call to action, a reminder that every being had a role to play in the eternal cycle of creation and renewal. The morning passed in a blur of luminous revelation and heartfelt communion. Arsam, now anointed by the collective spirit of Barakund, felt both the burden and the blessing of his newfound destiny. The challenges ahead were vast, and the road would undoubtedly be fraught with trials. Yet the promise of a renewed covenant, a bond strong enough to mend the fractured ties between humanity and nature, filled him with an unwavering determination. With the conclave's blessings echoing in his soul, Arsam prepared to set forth once more. The dawn had given way to a day of possibility, and the forest, now alive with the promise of renewal, beckoned him to continue his sacred quest. The journey ahead was long, and many mysteries still lay hidden beneath the ancient boughs of Barakund. But as he walked away from the meadow, guided by the radiant light of a new era and the eternal chorus of ancient voices, Arsam Idris knew that he carried within him the enduring spark of a covenant reborn, a promise that would forever echo in the heart of the wild. As the golden light of a waning afternoon began to melt into the lavender hues of twilight, Arsam Idris found himself once again standing at the threshold of destiny. The forest of Barakund, now transformed by days of sacred ritual and trials of the heart, resonated with an energy that was both timeless and deeply personal. Every whisper of wind and every rustling leaf carried the voices of ancient guardians, urging him toward a final convergence where the covenant between humanity and nature would be sealed for eternity. For countless days and nights, Arsam had journeyed through enchanted glens, through secret sanctuaries where the past and future coexisted in a dance of light and shadow. His heart had been tested in the Vale of Shadows, purified in the amphitheater of renewal, and imbued with the wisdom of forgotten spirits. Now, as he stood at the edge of a vast clearing illuminated by a radiant twilight, he sensed that the culmination of his odyssey was near, a moment when all the lessons of the forest would converge into a single, transcendent truth. The clearing before him was unlike any he had ever witnessed. Encircled by ancient oaks whose gnarled branches seemed to stretch out in benevolent embrace, the open space was carpeted with soft, dew-kissed grass that shimmered like liquid silver. In the center stood an enormous, intricately carved stone obelisk, the Pillar of Eternity, which had long served as the silent guardian of Barakund's sacred legacy. Its surface was adorned with spiraling symbols, each one representing a fragment of the eternal covenant: unity, sacrifice, renewal, and the sacred balance of all living things. Arsam approached the Pillar of Eternity with reverence, each step echoing with the wisdom of centuries past. As he drew nearer, the obelisk seemed to respond to his presence. A subtle vibration pulsed beneath his feet, and the carvings on the stone began to glow with an inner light, their luminescence growing stronger with every heartbeat. The energy emanating from the pillar was not merely physical. It was the collective memory of a lost world, a reminder of the promises made between the wild and those who dared to listen. In that charged moment, the forest hushed. Even the nocturnal creatures, which had once whispered secrets in the dark, fell silent as if in awe of the sacred ritual about to unfold. The very air was alive with expectancy. Arsam felt his heart swell with the culmination of every trial, every whispered prayer, every tear shed in solitude along this arduous journey. He knew that here, beneath the watchful gaze of both mortal ancestors and eternal spirits, his destiny would finally merge with that of the forest. A soft, almost imperceptible hum began to emanate from the pillar, gradually rising in a harmonious cadence that echoed through the clearing. The sound was like the first gentle notes of a celestial symphony, a melody that carried with it the promise of rebirth and redemption. It was as though the obelisk was communicating in the language of the cosmos, inviting Arsam to step forward and embrace his role as the herald of a renewed covenant. Taking a deep, steadying breath, Arsam placed his hand upon the cool, time-worn surface of the pillar. In that instant, a surge of radiant energy coursed through him, a brilliant cascade of light and color that enveloped his entire being. He closed his eyes as memories of ancient rituals, long-forgotten prayers, and the timeless dance of nature flooded his consciousness. The forest spoke to him then, not in words but in sensations and visions, each one a testament to the power of unity and the inexorable bond between all living things. Images of ancestral gatherings under starlit skies unfolded before him. He saw tribes, clad in simple garments and adorned with symbols of reverence, raising their voices in unison as they celebrated the sacred cycles of nature. He witnessed the dance of the elements, the swirling of wind, the gentle fall of rain, the steady burn of a sacred fire, all harmonizing in a cosmic ballet that defied the constraints of time. Through these visions, Arsam came to understand that the covenant was not merely a relic of the past, but a living promise, a sacred duty entrusted to each generation to honor, protect, and nurture the delicate balance of the natural world. As the glow from the pillar intensified, the surrounding forest joined in the chorus of renewal. From the depths of the shadows emerged the spectral forms of the guardians, the wolves with their luminous eyes, the custodians whose silent vigil had guided him, and the ethereal presence of Afraz, the radiant spirit of the wild. They gathered around the clearing in a solemn procession, their forms shimmering with an otherworldly light. With every step they took, the earth beneath them seemed to pulse in harmony with the ancient song of the covenant. The ethereal assembly circled the pillar, their collective presence a testament to the eternal nature of the bond between humanity and the wilderness. In that moment, the veil between the mortal and the divine grew almost imperceptibly thin. The guardian's eyes, each one reflecting centuries of wisdom and sorrow, met Arsam's gaze with a silent promise of guidance and protection. The celestial symphony reached a crescendo, and the very fabric of reality trembled with the power of the union being forged. In a voice that resonated like 1,000 echoes of the past, the pillar itself began to speak. A deep, sonorous vibration that reverberated through the clearing and into the heart of every living creature present. Arsam Idris, the voice intoned, gentle yet commanding. You have journeyed far, traversing the realms of shadow and light, and you have borne the weight of ancient memory with unwavering courage. Today, you are called to restore the sacred covenant between man and nature, a promise forged in the crucible of time and destined to endure beyond the confines of mortal existence. Overwhelmed by the gravity of the moment, Arsam's eyes opened to behold the full majesty of the spectacle. The pillar's surface transformed before him, revealing intricate depictions of nature's eternal cycles. The blooming of a single flower that gave way to a mighty forest, the rising and setting of countless suns, and the infinite dance of life and death. Every symbol was a story, a narrative of struggle, of sacrifice, and ultimately, of hope. And in the midst of this cosmic tapestry, his own story was woven into the eternal fabric of Barakund. With a profound sense of purpose, Arsam lifted his hand once more, this time in a gesture of acceptance. I accept this duty, he whispered, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotion raging within him. I will honor the ancient covenant and ensure that the spirit of nature endures through every storm and every season. The words, spoken with sincere resolve, reverberated through the clearing like a sacred incantation. In response, the pillar's glow intensified, and a cascade of light erupted from its pinnacle, showering the assembly in a radiant embrace. The spectral guardians, the luminous wolves, and the ethereal spirit of Afros, all joined in a moment of transcendent unity. It was as if the very essence of the forest converged upon this one instant, forging an unbreakable bond between the past and the present, between the seen and the unseen. The earth trembled gently underfoot, and the air was filled with a palpable sense of renewal, a promise that the wounds of time and neglect would now begin to heal. The ancient covenant, once thought to be a relic of a bygone era, was being reborn in the heart of Barakund. Arsam, now anointed as the emissary of this sacred bond, felt an overwhelming surge of both humility and determination. Every cell in his body vibrated with the knowledge that his destiny was irrevocably entwined with the fate of the natural world. As the radiant light slowly subsided, the clearing returned to a serene state, albeit one charged with an unspoken promise. The guardians began to fade into the gentle embrace of the forest, their duty fulfilled for this cycle. The pillar of eternity, now silent once more, stood as a timeless sentinel, a reminder that the covenant was eternal and that its flame would continue to burn as long as nature thrived. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, yet the memory of that transcendent moment in the clearing never faded from Arsam's heart. In the aftermath of the ritual, Barakund seemed to pulse with a renewed vibrancy, a living, breathing tapestry where every creature, every whisper of wind, and every rustle of leaves bore testimony to the rekindled covenant. The forest healed, its scars mending as nature's inexorable rhythm restored balance and harmony. Arsam returned to the wider world, carrying with him the sacred duty bestowed upon him. He became a quiet guardian, a living link between the ancient ways and modern life. Wherever he went, the spirit of Barakund followed, a silent reminder that nature's wisdom was not confined to remote wildernesses, but was present in every facet of life. His journey inspired others to reconnect with the natural world, to seek out the deep, timeless truths that lie hidden beneath the surface of everyday existence. Years later, as Arsam's hair turned silver and his eyes reflected a lifetime of memory, the legacy of the covenant continued to flourish. In communities near ancient groves and hidden sanctuaries, people gathered to celebrate nature's bounty and to honor the sacred bond between humanity and the earth. The rituals and songs that had once echoed in the forgotten sanctuaries were revived, passed down through generations as living testimony to the power of unity, sacrifice, and hope. In the twilight of his life, Arsam often returned to Barakund, odyssey, a place that had changed him profoundly and given him a purpose beyond measure. Sitting beneath a towering oak in a quiet glen, he would close his eyes and listen to the soft murmur of the forest, recalling the day when destiny converged at the pillar of eternity. In those moments of introspection, he felt the eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth, a cycle that was as constant as the rising sun and as deep as the ancient earth. And so, the saga of Arsam Idris and the sacred covenant of Barakund reached its final verse, not an ending but a continuation in the hearts of those who remembered that nature, in all its timeless glory, is both the beginning and the end. The covenant was no longer a distant myth, but a living promise, an unbreakable bond that would guide humanity toward a future where the wisdom of the past illuminated the path to a brighter, more harmonious world. In that everlasting moment, as the forest whispered its ancient lullabies and the stars shone with the brilliance of forgotten dreams, Arsam's journey found its home in the eternal embrace of nature. The promise he had made that day echoed through every rustling branch, every babbling brook, and every beat of the wild heart of Barakund. And thus, the story of a solitary hiker who once found himself circled by wolves transformed into a legacy, a testament to the enduring power of the sacred covenant, a promise that will forever unite man and nature in a symphony of life.